Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called Qualified for It. In a previous job, we had a manager that would always criticize people for anything, but it really came to a head when they knew a lot more than this person on a subject. This came up in a meeting following a major health and safety breach. Long story short, a contractor drilled through asbestos, and as I was in charge of looking after the building it happened at, I was apparently the one at fault. For background, the contractor was told not to go near the area in question, but decided to ignore me anyway. I even had an email trail consisting of 35 messages to this extent. So we are in the meeting together with the head of health and safety and representative of the HSE. I came armed with my qualifications because I knew this manager would try to trip me up and twist it to look like I admit fault because he was known for being a manipulative bastard. Unrelated note, it ended up being his undoing later in his career. Earlier that year, my department was enrolled in a duty to manage course. This meant that we could visually inspect asbestos containing materials and report back on condition. This manager was also meant to be on the course but didn't show, and instead took his certificate of attendance anyway and told people he was certified. We start discussing the incident and the start of lame turns to me. Well, you told me that this was an accident, but what if the asbestos material was already damaged and you didn't report it? Cue malicious compliance. Here manager, take a look at my most recent inspection. As you can see, this is dated last week and the photos show no visible damage. But that didn't stop him. Okay, that's great. But tell me, what makes you qualified to determine if this has been disturbed or not? At this point, I pass over my entire folder of qualifications. This includes my results from school, college, on-site training and certs I've taken off my own back. He paused for a minute on my duty to manage certificate. Oh yeah, we set this on the same day. Actually manager, you were nowhere to be seen that day, but still you displayed the certificate in your office. Can you explain that? Our head of health and safety began frantically writing something in her notebook, and the HSE rep looked appalled at what he just heard. I was told to report to his office immediately after we convened this meeting, to which I asked, am I qualified enough to be there? Laughter erupted from H&S and HSE, and we never had that follow-up together. The manager got fired for running his mouth to the managing director, telling him he should be higher up the company and that he knows better than even the owners. The next story is called Thanks for Firing Me. This happened almost 10 years ago. I was teaching IT in a professional school and was getting near 2 years of employment. In my country, at the time, once you completed 1 year at a company, you had the right to take 1 month of paid vacation. But the employer could hold it till right before your second mandatory vacation period came along. So the school had no choice but to arrange everything for my leave of absence. Problem was, they had no one to put in my place during said month. When the topic came up, I gladly offered to help them hire someone and even train this person before taking my leave. All would go well if there wasn't some drama getting set up in the background. A few months back, our teaching manager had quit in a dramatic way. She was having a relationship with a student, which was heavily against the school's policies. And to make it even worse, the student in question was my own daughter. I was against it but kept quiet, cause my daughter asked me to and said she was happy. I later found out it was a really bad relationship. So she decided to quit as a way to not get fired once higher ups found out about the affair. We kept in touch, mostly because of my daughter, but the friendship we once had was affected permanently. Unfortunately, this wasn't the perception of the school's managers. Gossip ran around about how I wasn't to be trusted because of my connection to the former manager. But none of it reached my ears because I simply never engaged in this kind of talk and simply kept to myself. The school eventually hired a former teacher to fill the vacant position in the teaching department. At the time, I had no clue why they had not offered me the job. The new manager was a friend of mine and told me they offered him the job instead of me because higher managers had the habit of listening to the gossip, and that the CEO was actually looking for grounds to legally fire me. According to local labor laws, if he didn't have a valid reason for this, he would have to pay a huge fine. But the new manager told me he was fighting for me. That set me off, and I just told him to stop bothering. If the boss tells you again that he wants me gone, do not disagree with him. I did everything they asked me about hiring a substitute, knowing that he would be my permanent replacement. But I was adamant in not giving them any reason to fire me without full compensation. About a week before my leave end, I called the teaching manager and asked about my return to work. He asked me to start with a free class. The school offered free classes monthly to attract new students. and that he would have a meeting with the CEO afterward to arrange everything about my return. I asked him to send me an email with all the details of this class, and he hesitated before complying. The email I got specified a different schedule from what we discussed by phone. Huh? I had 4 free classes that day before meeting the manager and the CEO. Each one went smoother than the previous. When the time of the meeting came, they still didn't have any reason to fire me. The CEO started citing a bunch of complaints they supposedly received about my behavior while in class for the past 2 years, but did not provide any proof of it. He then started saying how the results of the new teacher were through the roof and that they should have hired him instead of me much sooner. The whole thing was very confrontational and aggressive and clearly designed to provoke some kind of violent response from me. I kept calm and smiling the whole time. When he saw the strategy didn't pan out, he said he was simply giving my regular classes to the new guy and keeping me with just the free classes. In his mind, this would severely cut down my earnings and I would feel forced to quit. Since I had read a lot about labor laws during vacations, cue the malicious compliance. Wait, so I get to keep my current earnings and work 1 day a week? Well, sign me up. Of course you would only be paid for the free classes. So, do I have a saying in keeping teaching regular classes? No, as I was saying, the new teacher is really loved by the students and, well, if dropping the regular classes are not my own choice and I have no way to prevent it, then according to the law you have to keep paying me exactly the same amount as before. Even if by your own decision I'll be here just 4 days each month. This isn't how it works. But it is, and you can of course disagree. And you can choose to pay me less if you want to. But what you cannot do is fire me with just cause when I sue you because of it. What if I just fire you right now? That would mostly be acceptable. Then you are fired. Thank you very much. So I was fired, not only with full severance, but I actually had to go back there a week later to pick up even more money. The guy forgot to give me a mandatory raise issued by the teachers union while I worked there. So if he didn't pay the difference retroactively, he would be sued and probably criminally charged. We ended everything with a firm handshake, and almost 10 years later I'm back at the same company, now as the teaching manager. The third story is called Know Your Rights. About 10 years ago, my husband and I were renting a house where we tried to buy a place. The landlord seemed so nice and it was a great situation. When we found a place to buy, we gave him our forwarding information along with the keys. It took about 2 months to get our deposit back and we were shocked to say the least. He had taken $400 out. He had an enclosed porch that had screens with no glass. It had outdoor carpeting that was gross and we bought a remnant to cover the carpet since we had little kids and it was questionable. It wasn't ideal, but it was a rental. When we left, we rolled up the carpet and threw it out. Anyway, the landlord stated in his letter that he was taking out the $400 because we had broken the lease by having a dog, and his proof was the condition of that carpet. We did not have a dog, and that carpet was gross when we got there. We tried to explain that, but he was having none of it and would ignore our attempts to reach out. Plus, how do you prove the absence of something? Cue malicious compliance. You want to follow the lease so carefully as to make up animals? Well, perhaps you should read the laws a little better. According to our state, landlords have exactly 1 month to send the deposit back. He took 2. According to the law, you can be held liable for 3 times the amount, $1,800 in our case. So we sued. We no longer wanted the $400 back, we wanted $5,400. While it was somewhat painful, he dodged attempts to serve him, he had out-of-state attorney friends try to intimidate us, he eventually had to hire an attorney. We settled on $2,000, in addition to the $1,400 we got back. We filed with the help of a friend, so we didn't owe an attorney, just filing fees. He ended up paying $2,000 plus attorney fees instead of our $400 for a phantom dog. Know your rights as tenants. The next story is called The Reward for Hard Work. For 10 years I worked a night shift sorting mail at the post office. It was a secure job with decent pay and benefits. All the bulk mail for the area would come in and we would sort it into the different rounds based on the address. Learning all the breakdowns took some effort. But once you had them memorized, the job was relatively simple. There was a set amount of letters you had to be able to sort per minute and we were randomly tested on speed and accuracy. With a little experience, you could easily sort 3 or 4 times faster than what was required. The night shift ran 11 PM to 7 AM and the staff that delivered the mail started at 6:30 AM. We originally had a great manager that was happy for us to leave work once we had sorted all the mail. This was a great incentive for all the night shift to work as fast as we could, because if we did, most days we got to leave an hour early, if not more, all for the same money. Productivity was spectacular. Our manager got a promotion to another office, and the new manager saw things differently. When he realized we were all leaving early each day, he passed a mandate stating that we must stay at work until the end of shift and assist the delivery staff. We tried explaining the benefits of the transitional system, but they wouldn't be swayed. Now the only reward for hard work was more work. So from then on, we worked only at the official speed. All the mail was rated, so management could calculate how long it should take to process. We were always still well above the required rate, just not at the stellar speed we had previously achieved. Not only did the work last until the end of shift, we even started getting overtime, which never happened previously. Management could do nothing except hire more staff to meet the demand and attempt to cut down overtime. The new manager was shifted to another branch and someone was promoted in-house. Fortunately, they were well aware of the situation and let us go back to the original agreement. Now, with the extra staff, we left even earlier and everyone was thrilled, both staff and management. The last story is called Part-Time Job. I'm a pharmacy tech and was employed by an independently owned company that got purchased by a huge company that victimizes society. Because I do as much as I can for money, I'll work extra shifts pretty much anytime. After I was sold as a full-time tech, I was sent to a new work location that hadn't had a tech in over a year. So I agreed to work pretty much all day, every day for the overtime pay. By the time C19 hit, I was averaging close to 80 hours a week. The money was good and so was some of the staff. Then C19 and some health conditions hit. My doctor wrote orders that I be off work for an extended period of time. Since I was full-time, I put in a leave, took the time off and stayed home to heal up so I could return. HR didn't like the document my doctor provided, so sent him a multi-page form to fill out. They wanted specific answers to things like exactly when I could return to work. He told them there was no way to know and refused to fill out their multi-page forms. I got better, returned to my 80-ish hours a week and worked as normal until HR notified me that my leave had been denied. And since my weekly average had now dropped below 30, I was part-time, cutting all my benefits basically in half. I talked to the district manager about it and he ignored the issue. Then he got himself fired. So I talked to his replacement, who did allegedly look into it. He came back with, "There's nothing we can do. You'll just be part-time until June, when your average hours will put you back at full-time." I asked him a couple of times just to confirm that I'm now part-time. Half benefits, working 60 to 80 hours a week, and he confirmed that I'm indeed part-time. So I looked around the local job market and found a much better paying job in a non-competitive location that has weekends off. I can work 40 hours there, have time off, and between the pay increase and reduced travel distance be pretty close to the same income. I took the new job. But since the district manager said I was part-time, I gave him exactly what he said. I didn't leave the company. I just made my availability a couple of Saturdays a month, 9 AM to 1 PM. I'm still the only tech assigned to that location. I'm just part-time now, exactly as he decreed. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. And I hope you have a great day. Stay safe. Bye bye.